I'm with John and JC Billone of NuFlow Services in New York State. You guys are at the WWETT Show and you volunteered to come in and do a podcast with us. But I think this should be fun. So John, correct me wherever I go wrong here, but you were a plumber originally. We're going, I'm not judging by age, but we're going back a few years here, probably 20, 30 years ago.
More than that.
More than that.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll let you tell us about that.
Yeah, so I became a master plumber back in '89.
So in 89, you were a master plumber still in New York.
Still in Rochester, New York, correct.
It's not magic to just become a master plumber. So there's a precursor here.
Yeah.
Tell me the story about just like what brought you into plumbing, first of all, to start.
Yeah, fair question. Grew up in a family plumbing business. So my dad was a master plumber. And because of that, I was able to take the exam, even though I didn't have 10 years of experience, because to ensure the longevity of the plumbing business, they would allow sons and daughters of master plumbers to take the test.
That's smart, though. Do they still do that in New York State?
They do.
That's actually smart, because one of the barriers to entry of plumbing, which is good and bad, honestly, if you're already in the plumbing business, kind of nice. If you want to get into it, you have to be a master plumber, at least in the state of Wisconsin, for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be licensed in order to pull permits and do your work. So my brother and I became master plumbers at a very young age. Even though I went to school for HVAC and still went into the family plumbing business, and worked with my dad for many years, and that's how I got my start in the business. My two brothers, younger than me, both came into the business. From there, we ended up buying a Mr. Rooter plumbing franchise. So that was 2000.
So I'm going to take you way back further here, because I want to hear the dirt here.
Yeah.
So you grew up in a plumbing household.
I did.
Your dad was a plumber your whole time you were a kid growing up.
Correct.
And then are you thinking this whole time, I want to grow up to be a plumber too? Or were you like...
I loved it. Now, my mom wanted me to be an engineer. I went to Clarkson University up in Potsdam because my mom did not want me to be a plumber. She saw, what my dad was doing. He'd come home dirty every day in the trenches, but my dad just loved what he did. And when I went to work with my father, I loved it. I loved putting pipe together. I loved being in the ditch. I loved everything about it.
It sounds like your dad was kind of a one-man shop.
No. My dad was in the local, in the plumbers union, and had a partner. He got out of the union because he had 4 children at home to feed and support. So my dad went on his own, opened up his own plumbing company.
That's what I'm saying. So was he a one-man show, or did he have employees under him?
Oh, yeah, he had employees.
Okay, so he grew this into a legitimate plumbing business.
100%.
So you're a kid growing up, and you do want to follow in the family footsteps, because a lot of times I've talked to quite a few plumbers and things like that, and a lot of times they're like, that's the last thing I want to do. I see dad getting dirty, working long hours, all this, dealing with employees. But you, right from the get-go, decided, like, I kind of do want to do this.
Yeah, I can't really tell you why. I enjoyed working with my hands. I loved there's creativity. It was really a craft, right? You were learning a trade, a craft when you were, putting together soil pipe, lead and oakum joints, soldering 6-inch copper, screwing 3-inch and 4-inch galvanized pipe, things that aren't even done today.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Few things have evolved.
I'm very appreciative of that upbringing and stayed in the business. Couple diversions, but they were good diversions, and we can talk about that. But those were the early years.
Well, so you were doing your own thing. You were working with your dad. Eventually, did you buy your dad out? Did he?
Yeah, my dad never asked for a dollar.
Or he disliked you.
I want him to close his ears. My father never asked for a dollar.
We'll get to the third generation here eventually.
Yeah. So my brothers and I ran the business. We were not a plumbing service company. We did mechanical contracting. That was Billone Mechanical. So my brothers and I always felt that we needed to be in the plumbing service business and generate another revenue stream. And that's when we were introduced to the Mr. Rooter franchise.
That's what I wanted to know.
And that was appealing because we felt there was importance in name recognition, even though back then, Mr. Rooter Plumbing was somewhat in its infancy. The Dwyer family,
Did you say this was 01?
we sold it in '01. You
sold
bought
it
it
in
in
01.
1990.
So in 90, you became a Dwyer Group franchise.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then my brother and I ran it for 10 years. It's a young man. I mean, I'm telling you this now. It's a young man's game. I mean, it was 24/7, 7 days a week. We got the business up to 15 trucks, and we're like, okay, we're done. We're done with this. I mean, you make a good living, but man, you working your tail off.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
you're
that's
working
why
your
plumbing
tail off.
businesses
Yeah.
sell for good money too. But 1990 was a totally different time. It doesn't seem that long ago, at least to me. But in 1990, there is no internet, so there was. I hope
I had
this
a
doesn't
brick
come up.
phone. Remember the brick phones? I had one of those.
Yeah, a bag phone or a brick phone.
Yeah.
But there had to be a lot more value in a franchise back then because it was a lot harder to figure things out on your own as far as marketing and pricing, and because there wasn't the communication there is now. There's Facebook groups and there's groups on the internet where a lot more information is shared. I think you had to lean on a franchise more back then to learn some of this stuff. Or what was the appeal to jump? You said, you jumped into the franchise. What was like, we should do it this way because we'll grow faster?
You're right. No, it was a system. We were sold. We were buying a system, a package. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel. We knew plumbing. There were lawyers and there were doctors and there were other professions that were buying franchises for different reasons. They had no clue how to do plumbing. We just happened to know plumbing, but we did not have a system. We didn't have, because keep in mind, we weren't doing any service work. So we bought the marketing. We bought, the bookkeeping system. We were buying all those things, but ultimately we didn't buy it necessarily to keep it. We bought it because we knew we were going to sell it.
So you knew in your head that you were building a business, not necessarily for succession, but.
Yeah. I mean, I got married in '88. JC was born in '92. So I was young, right?
Born in '92.
Yeah.
Goodness.
No succession plan as far as a family succession plan at that particular point. And then, we owned it for 10 years and we sold it.
So you sold the plumbing franchise. I assume there was some type of non-compete in place there when you sold it?
No, because I sold it to my brother-in-law, who was an employee of ours.
Sucker.
Yeah. But no, he knew. My brother-in-law, Mo, bought the business. He was an employee of ours while we had the company. And at that point, I think I went strictly into real estate development at that point. We'll talk more, but sold it to Mo, and Mo took off with the business.
I think I know where this story is going to go, and I hope I'm right. You said you got into real estate development, and you started to realize that the infrastructure in New York sucked. And then you said there's got to be a better way other than digging all this up. And we did not talk about this beforehand, did we?
No.
And you said there's got to be a better way than digging all these old pipes up. Am I right or am I wrong?
You're not right. You're not right. I wish I could say you were right, but I got
that much
bored.
foresight. I don't think you had that much foresight.
No, I didn't. I wish I was smarter, but I
feel like
just
you were
was
probably
getting
pretty
bored. I was getting bored in real estate. I got my real estate license at a very early age. I was still in college when I got my real estate license, so I was selling real estate young. And once I left and sold the plumbing business, the Rooter business, went into real estate development and started doing multifamily renovations, which I fell in love with.
And all the pipes were perfect, so this did not lead to NuFlow.
Yeah, no, they weren't. No, it did not lead to NuFlow. Correct. That's kind of interesting because shortly after we sold Mr. Rooter Plumbing to my brother-in-law, Mo was the third license holder for NuFlow. He saw something I didn't even know about it.
What year was this? Is early 2000s?
Early 2000s.
Yeah, so that is early because this show. So I've been coming to this show for about 30 years.
Yeah.
And the first few shows, there was a little bit of that technology here. It was a lot different.
Very small.
Yep, very small.
There was none of it in Nashville. When the pumper cleaner show, when I used to go in the '90s, was in Nashville.
There was me as well, but it was more
there?
of the bursting technology than the
Okay.
relining technology. So
Okay.
you would have had a lot more of your like TT technology type stuff, where you're actually pulling. Bursting more so than relining. I would say relining, and I'm looking to the audience for some help here because there's someone sitting in there. There was relining in Nashville. I want to say, did we have was Permaliner in Nashville? Yeah. So I think the very end of the Nashville years would have been like late '90s is when in my opinion, it first started to come out.
I was like had blinders on, didn't see it, didn't know about it. Mo claims he brought it to my attention when I still owned Mr. Reuter, and I don't recall that conversation. And then he went ahead and bought the license for NuFlow back in 2003.
Regardless, he was early. The point is
he was early.
I think a lot of people back in the day, just like anything, this isn't an industry known for its technology. Now, you look around and you'd argue, look at some of the sewer inspection equipment and look at how lining is becoming. Actually, look around and there's a lot of technology here. But back then, people were always like, plumbing was plumbing. Septic pumping was septic pumping. It's like technology didn't need to be there. So I think people were afraid of it to some degree. Like, you can't just make a pipe new again. And they needed to see it, believe it, let it hold up for now 2 decades.
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, that was a lot of it.
Yeah, you're right. It was a stretch. I mean, like anything new back then, I think I would still argue that it was new. People enjoy being in their comfort zone.
Exactly.
So to go outside of that, challenging, I give Mo the credit because he saw an opportunity. Now, he didn't do a ton of pipelining. I mean, he did a job here, he did a job there, and it was another tool in his toolbox. When he fast forward several years, and when he shared with me what he was doing, so that would have been like 2015. That's for me when the light bulb went off. I'm like, wow, that is really cool technology. So my introduction to pipelining was like in 2015.
And you would have been a teenager in 2015. You were born in what year again?
92. So I was my first year of grad school.
So you were
2015.
you were in your 20s.
I was in my 20s.
So what are you paying attention to the business at this point?
No, because he was doing mostly real estate property development, and at that time, for like most of my adolescent, early teenage years, he was mostly in real estate property development. That was, let's call it early 2000s up to 2014, 2015. And I thought that was really cool, really admirable. I remember growing up, in my youngest memories, him coming home late, white shirt, dirty, having just spent a night doing plumbing, right? But then a kind of switch moment where now he was wearing a suit coat to work and slacks instead of
All
jeans.
All of a sudden you think your dad is one of the Sopranos.
I'm like, what is it? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh wow, this is cool. But again, it's just dad doing work, just doing his job. So it didn't really click. So the plumbing knew of it, was really proud of it. My uncles continued to do Billone Mechanical, the mechanical side. So they still stayed in it. My dad's brothers sold Mr. Reuter to my uncle, my mom's brother, his brother-in-law. So plumbing and like the trades were still involved, I would say, like in the family dynamic. But my dad himself was now in real estate property development. I ended up going to college, engineering, had a different path in my mind, but we would always just chat, figure out, okay, what's he up to? What's he doing? My dad, and was always willing to listen, see if there was, an opportunity there.
So in 2015, you're in your 20s. The light bulb finally goes on for you. Finally. We got Mo to thank. 20
Absolutely.
years later, Mo's been pushing this on you, and you're like, you know what? I think Mo's onto something here.
Yeah. So that's at that point, he was trying to offload his plumbing company, Mr. Reuter Plumbing. He bought another 2 plumbing companies. I was starting to get tired of real estate development. They were 20-year. We did a lot of multi-million-dollar renovation work, big loans. We didn't own anything, right? The banks owned everything. It was like 20-year payback. these weren't flips. We
Well,
weren't
that
flipping
and
real
real
estate.
estate got weird.
Yeah, yeah.
In
The
I think it
market
was right around 2015. Am I right? Or was it 08?
08.
08,
Yeah,
yeah.
08. But I loved what I was doing. I just kind of got tired of doing it, and I saw the market changing, and I'm like, okay, I need to do something different. And it was at that point where Mo and I kind of came together. He was looking at selling his businesses. I was looking to figure out what I was going to do next, and because he was looking at selling his company, which included pipelining, he goes, hey, John, he goes, take a look at my financials. I want to get an idea if you think that I'm getting enough money for my company. I looked at his financials and, in plumbing service, plumbing installs, lining. I'm like, what's lining? Like, what's that all about? He goes, oh, that's the business you wanted nothing to do with, 20 years ago. I'm like, what are you talking about?
So it had a pretty good column on his behind it.
Well, it was nice, but when he explained it to me, I says, okay, here's an idea. Sell your business, but take out this piece of it. If you want to, we'll start a lining company, exclusive lining.
Was he big enough at that time that like VC was looking at buying the business, or was he just kind of pitching this to other plumbers?
Other plumbers.
So it didn't matter that you took that line.
Didn't matter. Ultimately, he sold the Mr. Rooter franchise to his daughter. My niece is running the Mr. Rooter
Sounds like
plumbing
if you want to buy anything, you
business.
better have the last name, otherwise you're not
She's
going to get your
she's
paws
here.
on it.
She's actually at the show, walking around. Aubrey is their last name.
Aubrey, she's looking for a pump truck. Yep, she's looking for a pump truck. So in 2015, Mo and I decided to. So he had bought the NuFlow license. So we then got permission to use NuFlow in our name, and we created NuFlow Services of Upstate New York. So people think that we are NuFlow corporate. We're not.
It is a little confusing when I was doing my research on this podcast, and I quickly deduced that you weren't, but
Right. Yeah. No, we're sole proprietors of our business in upstate New York, and we've been now.
well, let's talk about the lining. I mean, let's get to it. So the reason I assumed it maybe came out of the real estate is I had a really cool podcast with a guy out of Wisconsin who was a real estate guy, but he was
Is that Sewer Ninja?
yeah.
Yeah, we met him last year. He did a talk, and I loved the talk. So last year, WWETT Show, I wasn't even working with my dad. I was doing my old job and knew I was looking for something different. My dad was like, "Hey, come to the WWETT Show, get exposure, get experience, exposure to the industry."
I think he had a session last year, right?
I did have a session. We attended it. Loved his enthusiasm. And I was like, okay, I could vibe with this.
Yeah.
And that was one of the key sessions for me that I attended, where I then said to my dad, yeah, like there's something here. Not that I didn't trust what my dad had to say, but I think
Well, your dad didn't trust what Mo said either.
True,
so it
true,
seems
yeah,
kind of running
exactly.
the family.
Yeah, second person has to tell you. Yeah.
You need to hear it from someone else.
Exactly. So I know who you're talking about. Great guy.
Well, what I liked about that podcast, number one, is it just kind of fell on his lap through real estate. He embraced it and ran with it. And it's a tougher market than you guys would be in. I would think the infrastructure's newer, but the branding he's got there to be able to scale that, in my opinion. So it's interesting you bring up NuFlow. If you guys did want to scale into other areas, is that your name, or is that your name trademarked under a certain specific geographic area?
Well, it's
Or
a
gray area, or we don't care?
Great question. We just kind of renewed our license, and in talking to the president of the company, NuFlow Technologies, Tom, I'm like, Tom, these counties, this is garbage. I'm like, we travel to East Hampton, New York. We're down in New Jersey. We're in Connecticut. We go to Ohio. We're all over New York plus surrounding states. And he was cool with that as long as we're not infringing on another NuFlow. But we are solely commercial industrial.
Okay.
And so we really get in some complex jobs. And there's nobody really close to us. NuFlow's happy to pass us jobs because they know they can count on
Sure.
us. So there's
2015 is when you finally, what you just mentioned, you weren't even doing this last year.
No.
What were you doing before this?
I was working at an education technology company that a friend from high school started in 2019. Startup. I was pre-COVID, first employee. Long story. I'll make it short. Moved to Michigan. lived there for about a year with the two founders of the company, building it. During COVID, we moved the company to New York City, and I was living there for about 5 years, doing sales, selling into colleges, working with presidents, provosts, completely different industry than I even had started post-college. And obviously this is a very different industry. So I like change, I guess. I like challenge. And I was looking for something different. I didn't know what that was going to be. This was on my radar. Working with my dad was on my radar, and the pipelining thing was really cool. He was like, "Jay, we get so many inbound inquiries," and I'm like, "Dad, what are you as a sales guy?" I was like, "Dad, what are you doing for outbound? What are you doing for marketing campaigns? What are you?" He's like, "Nothing really." I mean, he's pounding the pavement, doing lunch and learns. And those pay off. And 2 years later, everything seems like it's coming in. I'm like, wow, we could really pour some gasoline on this fire.
Right.
And that's when I was like, attended the show, and I was like, all right, let's do it. I want to
Well,
learn
it's
more.
interesting because I see a really cool dynamic here. It's like, again, we talked about why did you have to jump into a franchise? Because you just didn't know what you didn't know back then, and you were getting guidance from a franchise. And even now, it's like, again, I've been doing this since I started here in '97. I had done the Navy, then college, and then I came here. And I just think about, like, I came in fresh to this business, and at the time, we owned this show at the time,
Right.
and we sold it about 10 years ago. And I came in with a fresh perspective, and the guy at the time was like, "Oh, this is the new kid. He's pouring gas on the fire." Well, now I feel like I got to talk to a new kid. Because, like, it's weird. It's like time does pass you by, and you don't understand the AI, and you don't understand some of the new marketing methods, or how the younger generation is finding services, whether it be commercial or residential. So I think it's smart to enlist JC.
Well,
to look
yeah,
at it from
I mean,
a new perspective.
I was beyond thrilled when he showed interest in what we were doing. That that youth and the mind and how he processes, and we don't need to get into it, but I had a deal on the table to sell the company a few years ago. Me and Mo were selling the business.
So Mo is still a partner?
He's retired now. He's retired. He retired this past December. We had a deal on the table to sell our company, our NuFlow business, and that deal did not materialize for reasons. And the silver lining in that was that we still owned the company, and JC had approached me on his interest of joining us. So the succession plan was we were building NuFlow to sell it. Same thing. We weren't building it to pass on, even though my nephew was one of our employees. Not that we couldn't have made something work, but as it turns out today, that's not the case. Then when JC showed interest in the company, I'm like, hey, this could be yours.
So, I mean, let's go back a little bit. You come into play here. You're brand new. Pour some gas on this fire. Where did you see the combustibles? Like, what was he missing? You know what I mean, so to speak. It's like, I get he was grabbing the low-hanging fruit. Mm-hmm. What did you look at from a different perspective and say, like, we're missing this entire segment, or we're missing, like, what was it? What was the combustible?
Great question. I don't know if the combustible.
Be nice.
Yeah, I'll be nice. No, he wasn't. It wasn't like he was missing the forest for the trees, and I was going to come in and be like, "Here's the silver bullet." And
yeah, right.
I mean, things were going well. Year over year, the prior year they had a great growth year, and I was just like, "Okay, cool. From my understanding, you've kind of built the tools for me." And I was like, great, we're going to continue to do what you've been doing because it looks like it's working. And I want to add value. I want to grow this even more. And so I wouldn't say there was anything. I think I came in learning more about the business, the first month. It was basically like, okay, what is the low-hanging fruit from my brain, right? What's the knowledge gap, things that my dad's not even on his radar, and how can I add value? And my title is technically Director of Sales and Business Development. And what I quickly realized is I need to spend a lot more time in business development than I do in sales, meaning process, systems, trying to build scale at a small company of 12 employees to what we want to get to started with business development. And so for the past, let's call it 10 months, as long as I've been at the company, it's really been focused on business development. How do you improve repeatability, durability of the company, quality of jobs, as simple as two guys coming back and, debriefing a job that maybe went wrong. And so there wasn't anything, it was more so me taking maybe the first month to understand the culture, the ways of working, what we do today, and me saying, how can I bring some of my knowledge from, the startup that I worked at with 20-something-year-olds and bring maybe some different ways of working to make us more efficient, and bring maybe this pipelining company into the 21st century, which is my non-nice comment.
So what does the crystal ball look like in something like that? I mean, how long does it take to scale this to the place you want it to be? You just said 12 employees.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want it to be 20 employees, 40 employees, 50 employees? It doesn't matter how many employees we have. We have certain revenue goals. Like, what's the crystal ball on that?
Well, I mean,
I've always been about controlled growth but I have not always been about profitability. We're going to cover this tomorrow in our session a little bit. Growth means different things to different people. As I get older, I am solely focused on profitability. At Billone Mechanical, we were 50 guys, $10 million company losing money. So, what sense does that make?
Well,
right?
And sometimes growth comes with expenses that you get is less profitability.
Yeah, you're right.
There's those weird.
It's just I wasn't
stages.
I wasn't willing to lose money. We worked way too hard to lose money. So we just made a decision internally. We scaled down our company to get it to a place where we can control it and make money. Previously, this is 30 years ago. So when JC came on board, we started talking about growth. In the pipelining business, the opportunities for us are tremendous. I can't speak for other markets, but where we're located, there's not a lot of people that do what we do. We can scale, and this will be, JC's decision. I'm too attached to healthy bottom line. We will probably have a reduction in that, top line revenue is X, and then you've got your cost of goods and then your fixed expenses. And 25 wasn't as healthy as 24, but 24 was really healthy. So I'm okay with that, the margin that we did. Our plans are, well, you came up with the goal, the percentages, which it's ironic because when he shared the number with me, I'm like, wow, that's how are we going to achieve that? But what's interesting wasn't as much as the number, it puts your mind in a different frame of thinking.
Yeah.
It took a couple days for that to sink in, and then I saw it happening. I'm like, so,
Well, I was just going to say, I think, Jeff, me and my dad are pretty open and transparent with each other, and super fortunate for that. And I told my dad, as going into 2026, over the holiday break in 25, I was working on a sales plan for 26, trying to figure out where we wanted to be, where I wanted to grow the company. And I told him, I was like, I'm going to have aggressive goals that are aspirational because they're going to force us to make decisions that we otherwise wouldn't make, right? If our goal was to say, let's increase our bottom line or increase our revenue top line by 10%, we might take our foot off the gas. We might say, hey, okay, well, we're gonna do that lunch and learn, or we're gonna do that meeting, next week or in a month from now, and it kind of lights a little bit of a fire under you. Yeah. I think when you have that aspirational goal and you're like, no, let's try and hit that goal. Let's do what we need to do it.
And I was listening to an interesting podcast because I drove 8 hours to get here, and it was one of those things where they're like, well, there's a difference between setting like an ambitious or an unattainable goal. But even when you set an ambitious goal or an unattainable goal, even if you don't hit it, you've probably recognized growth that you wouldn't have hit if you didn't create that goal. And I was like, damn, it's like, because nobody wants to, well, we're going to have 100% sales growth. And you're like, well, we can't do that, but you got to find that happy spot. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're saying.
Exactly. And I think for my dad, I was like, Dad, don't get too attached to the number. I know the number is scary, but let's just talk about what would it take to get there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
What do we have to do to get there? And like, that's going to make us think differently, make different decisions, go down different routes. Maybe we I remember we had a meeting with our team beginning of 26. I said, guys, we're just so you know, I know in the 25 we kind of did a few residential jobs here and there. We're not going to do any more residential. Like, we're going to focus strictly on private, commercial, industrial manufacturing. And if we get a call through residential, just tell them, hey, we know some other guys in the area that could help you, and send them their way.
Or maybe that's something down the line. You can make its own little arm that operates differently, where we can, you can approach it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Because it is a different thing. What about municipal? You guys do municipal work too?
A little bit. We'll be maybe sometimes a sub.
Is this business, I don't know if I want to say recession proof, but does it remain steady no matter what's going on globally? Because now you've got almost over 20 years under your belt, 15. Math is hard.
Yeah.
10 years under your belt doing this. Has it always been steady? You made a comment like 25 was great. This year, I don't know. It's like.
Well, JC hit it earlier, is that everything we've done really since early on has been inbound. Like I don't go out to get sales.
Yeah. Which is a fortunate position to be.
It's amazing, but you're not really growing. So we don't even try to go after work. It just comes in. And when you ask the question about recession proof, the infrastructure, you've heard this, gets older every single day.
Yeah.
We do focus on historical areas, areas that were built as long as maybe 30 years ago. I mean, we're finding bad cast iron in the ground it's 30 years old. It's bad.
Do you still think that there's education? Like, I think there's still people who don't understand this technology
100%. Every day
exists and that it works.
We do one, a couple weeks already this year. We had maybe 2 or 3 lunch and learns in 1 week. Engineering firm, architectural firm, hospital.
Who are all thinking about digging before they talk to
digging,
you.
or they don't even know it's an option. Digging or cutting, right? Vertical chases, opening up walls in occupied buildings. It's like, guys, there's another solution here, and it might not be lining, it might not be spray, but just know that this exists.
What do you think? Like, it's weird to me because I'm immersed in this. It's even like we're in a tiny little town in northern Wisconsin. I talk to people about this, and they're looking at you like you're speaking voodoo. They're like, "What is this you're doing in the pipes underneath the ground? It doesn't make any sense."
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And to me, it's like, well, I've known this existed for, we could argue, 20 or 30 years. I guess my head thinks like, you guys are in New York, where the infrastructure is older than it is anywhere. Like I said, it doesn't make sense to me that people don't know this exists. So how are you attacking that? Like, how do you let people know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, my thought is, great point, Jeff, and it's like the thing that I want to try and tackle is just like educating the customer. I think the potential customer, whoever it might be, and it's like, okay, how do you maximize your time with your efforts, right? So do lunch and learns with engineers, right? Now they kind of become your indirect sales folks,
okay,
right?
That's
do your lunch and learns with your architects, with your contractors, your people that you're going to be sub to, so that
because
they know
you don't know what you don't know. So until you tell them this exists, but once they know it exists, it's in their tool belt.
Correct.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
We become
Plumbers,
an extension.
we
become an extension of mechanical contractors. So we don't compete with them. We don't do plumbing, we don't do mechanical, so there's no threat to call us to do pipelining. So the mechanical contractors, the engineers are amazing. We've become a professional consultant in the lining industry to engineers and architects, because even though they're PEs and RAs, they're not lining people. This is new to them. So we spend the time, we educate them, we write specs, non-proprietary specs, we give them to them, and then we get the phone calls. Hey, would you guys mind looking at this? Hey, would you guys mind looking at that? We don't have time to do outbound because it's all coming in, which is why we're looking for another salesperson. But, it has not been challenging to Well, this is the hard part. We go to a job and we see a freshly dug up floor or a freshly concreted floor, or we see a wall that's been demoed, and we're like, "Oh, we're too late.
Yeah.
we missed it.
Wish we would've talked last week."
Right. I feel bad for the customer because had they known, they may not have spent the money digging up this floor.
Right.
Right. That's the part that it's not so much for us is that, hey, there was a lost job. It's like, you spent
There's a better option.
$20,000 on
Yeah.
digging up a floor that you may not have had to dig up. Sometimes that's the answer, right? We can agree that sometimes you do have to replace a pipe. But our technology, more often than not, will yield a good result for the customer that helps their production schedule, helps their budget financially. There's a lot of factors that go into it. But so when we see that, we like, darn it, we're a little late, and it happens.
So to wrap this up, am I fair in saying that you are now building this business for succession
100%.
versus sale?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, now pretend he's not here.
Yeah.
What are you building it for?
We recently had the conversation, and I told him, like, Dad, given I've already had, I feel like this is my third career so far in my life. I told him, I was like, just know that I'm open to growing this to a point where, if someone approached us at a point in which we were ready to sell, I'd absolutely be willing to have that conversation. I'm not married, don't have any kids. Who knows what the future holds for me in that sense. But if I did, I don't, right now in my mind, I'm not picturing this as a succession for me personally, or a future generation of mine. I'm seeing this as, how can I help my dad win? How can I help myself win? How can I help our team win? And whatever that means to them, we want to make sure that we treat our guys fairly. And I mean, we're not even having selling conversations at this point. I think right now my aspirations are, let's grow this company as big as we can get it, and really look at each other in an honest moment in 5-10 years from now and say, wow, we really gave it all we had. And we don't know where we're going to be at that point, but
I think that's smart. Another thing that I've observed is I feel like if people always have that sale mentality, if you have a succession mentality, you're sometimes more complacent. It's like, I know I'm just going to hand this off to JC. It's a well-oiled machine. But if you're always keeping tight books, making smart decisions, because there might be a sale opportunity 10 or 15 or 20 years from now, I think you're building a better business in a weird way. Because those books have to be there, and things like that. And you're almost kind of saying that anyway.
Yeah, I want a mindset of scarcity right now. I'm not like in a mindset of abundance where it's like, wow, we're a really well-oiled machine. Hey, we have our dirty closet internally. Not everything is perfect at NuFlow Services of Upstate. And if I'm putting myself in the shoes of a prospective buyer, of a prospective in person who's interested, there's a lot of things that I want to make sure that we're fixing internally before I would ever even feel comfortable about broaching a selling conversation. That I want to be able for him to walk away at whatever he wants to, and be like, they don't need me. They don't need me anymore. He said that from day one. He's like, JC, like, the day that you no longer need me is a great day. And I feel similarly about myself. Like, how can we get this a well-oiled machine that's just purring along? Not quite there yet. We're getting there.
You'll get there. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.